Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on our final session of the day. It's our time for our roundtable discussing the future of work. Just take a moment to introduce our panel. And before I do that, I'd like to welcome everyone on the live streams. We're out on pmi.co.uk, on YouTube, on Facebook, in both channels that we have. Welcome to everyone joining us. It's fantastic to have you with us from the Goals to Results Conference. So our panel, we have Jenny Davis, lead for the people, there you go, see I told you I'd do that. For the people team at OVO Energy. We've got Dr. Saj Sadiq, Global CI Manager for Tenneco. We've got our very own Susanna Clark, Managing Partner in the middle there. We've got Amber Key, Transformation Manager at MAN Truck and Bus. And alongside Amber is Anthony Richardson, a Senior Consultant at PMI. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Suze to kick things off.
Thank you very much, Rich. Welcome back, everybody. So I just wanted to set the scene for the focus of the conversation that we're going to have for the rest of this afternoon. And this is really around how the improvement practitioner can add value, but also what does the future hold and what do we need to be prepared for, particularly focusing on three areas. So tomorrow's workforce, where it's based, in particular the question around hybrid, virtual, flexible working, AI and automation, and skills development. Now, it won't come as any surprise that I'm going to set the scene with a bit of data. So I wanted just to share three pieces of data with you around each of those three areas. The CIPD, they published a report in May 2023. And that says that 83% of organizations have hybrid working in place, and 60% of the people have flexible working arrangements in their current role. So a large proportion of the population. When we did a poll ourselves of our clients and contacts, over 80% of them were working fully flexibly in the roles that they were doing, where those roles permitted flexible working, I would add. Mazars recently published their C-Suite Barometer report, and that was based on research with 800 C-Suite leaders. And that report said that tech transformation is the top priority for CEOs, both in the UK and globally. Now, when we talk to our people in our poll and our clients, about 30%, they feel, yes, they've got this licked, they really understand what they're doing here, but around another 30% say this is very much still in the leadership domain, has not been disseminated yet to the organization, so clear goals don't yet exist amongst the people, and 30% really not really quite sure what's happening yet. They know it's out there. And the last piece of data I want to share was about the skills crisis. So this research was conducted by the National Foundation for Educational Research. And they said that up to 7 million workers in England may lack the essential skills to do their jobs by 2035. And most importantly, they define essential skills as communication, collaboration, problem solving, organizing, planning, prioritizing work. So we recognize a lot of this, don't we? This is what we would say was very much in our domain as improvement people, that these are skills that we know, we love, we have as competencies ourselves, and we need to understand more about how we can share and develop a lot of this with others. Our panel has kindly agreed to join me today to talk about their own experience, what they've done, what they're planning to do in the future. And so this is our last opportunity to work together and do that sharing of information and learning amongst each other. And then obviously, please do get in contact with anybody that you want to talk to after today's session. So I'm going to start with Amber. I wanted to ask you if you could just share with us all some of the challenges you faced in MAN and how you've overcome them, particularly around some of the tech.
Yeah, so I was involved leading a project last year, which was digitising how our workshops operate. So in the UK, we have our vehicles made in Germany, and then our trucks, vans, buses, coaches are all shipped to the UK where they're then sold. And then we've also got 18 wholly owned locations where they are serviced, the 6 weekly inspections, MOTs, etc., all carried out. So my challenge was to digitise those workshops. We've got over 300 technicians, and we were asking them basically to move from a paper job card that they had been doing for 10, 20, 30 plus years to an iPad with a technician app. Yeah, what a challenge. I'd like to say the blueprint for the rollout that I was asked by head office in Germany to use was you're going to send your technicians to a third-party trainer. We are giving them an 83 PowerPoint slide, and our technicians will sit there for 6 hours, watch this presentation. At the end of it, they'll get given their iPad and given a 12-page setup guide, told to go off back to the workshop, set up their iPad, and start the new way of working. Yeah, that's not going to work. So I'd worked quite closely with the technicians on another project, so I'd understand, really, they just want to fix trucks. I mean, not all of us want to sit through an 83 PowerPoint slide. I know that I don't, so a technician really isn't going to want to do that. So what we did instead was, first of all, we just went around the network and actually just introduced them to what an iPad actually is, set them up on the iPad, showed them how to use emails, how to use Teams, focusing on the familiar. So Teams, you're basically saying, is like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, just to really try and make that transition as simple as possible. And then we said, okay, for the next 3 to 6 months, just use the iPad. We'll save you some pages on your home screen so you can view your pay slips, book your holiday, just get familiar with how to do photographs, how to use a keyboard, all of these kind of things, which is actually the biggest barrier to the whole step. And then after a few months, we then planned our rollout, which was 1 branch per week. We'd go in, show the workshop controller how to allocate a job, and then go, who did you allocate that to? Fred. Grab Fred. Okay, here's how you log on to your technician app. Here's how you clock on. Here's the information. It was literally a 10, 15-minute conversation. Said, okay, crack on, go fix that truck. And when you're done and need to do your write-up, come back to us. And then we just hung around for 3 to 4 days on site in case they had any questions. That's the first time a rollout has been done like that, and the feedback we had was hugely positive. The problem, well, not the problem, but the situation we have is that a number of our workshops are 24 hours. There was only 3 of us in our team, so the 2 ladies that work for me, they're morning people. I'm not a morning person, I'm not really a night person, but they like the morning shift, so I said I would take the night shift. So you're sitting there at 2 in the morning, still teaching technicians and just being available for them. Some of the benefits of the technology are really unexpected. So when we first set the technicians up, some of them had like 3,000 unread emails. They just felt really disconnected from the organisation. So that kind of really helped. And the benefit of the technology as well, that the technicians, when they wrote up their notes, they said, you know, we didn't become technicians because we like writing essays. And some of them said that, you know, my spelling isn't so good, so I scribble a word because I'm embarrassed that somebody might think I can't spell. But with the predictive text on the iPads, that problem went away. And we also had a guy who's got Parkinson's. He's got tremors in his right hand. And he said he always really struggled just to write. He used to have to use his left hand, hold his right hand to write. And he was really worried about the keyboard on the iPad. But voice to text, we didn't even think about the accessibility benefits that giving devices out to our people would have. So it was hugely powerful. Yeah, it's really good.
Can I ask you, because what intrigues me is the fact that you started simply by deploying the equipment to them without actually doing the training on the end product you wanted them to use. Yeah. And then you left them to it. My sense is that many organisations would struggle with that, i.e. you're not going very fast. And I'd be really interested to know, because everybody wants pace, don't they?
Yeah, the Munich did set me a rollout schedule, I think, of 8 weeks from start to finish for 18 locations. And I just said, no, here's what we will do and here is why. And the interesting thing was that the other countries in Europe also then came to the UK. Some wanted to watch how we were doing our rollout. And then other countries then started following the UK approach. But yeah, it was, you just have to push back. And I think as long as you can give a valid reason and show that it's working, and people, I guess, have that trust in you because you've delivered other things before. Trust.
Yeah, talked a lot about that today. Jenny, I wondered if you could talk to us a bit about, you're part of the people team at OVO. So what are the conversations you're having on these topics of skills gap, capabilities, hybrid working, AI, automation tech, etc.? And what are you looking at, how you're going to address these over the next few years?
Yeah, there's big technologies, well, not coming, they're here. I think one of the key things that's been really important for OVO and its leaders, and also I think it was mentioned in the SSE presentation this morning, is about understanding where the company and some of the teams are in their maturity as a business. And so OVO was a small company in 2019. It acquired the SSE retail book and it grew 5 times overnight. And they had this transition period of a couple of years where they had 2 cultures, very different, one entrepreneurial, one very established business, culturally very different. And there were foundational stones that needed to be put in first, that they like to move fast and at pace, but they understood that we had to be patient and take people on that journey. And then, lockdown hits. They had lots of depots, lots of offices, and the operating model had to change. So there was that whole piece of, we were kind of forced into hybrid working from home, and they had to pivot again because when it came to opening up the doors, I'm sure some of y'all have people in your offices who were office workers, now work from home and don't want to come back into the office. And it's that, how do we find the new way? And I think all of these challenges has taken a strong leadership team that is ambitious, but wants to be patient and take their time to listen to their people. So one of the things that OVO does really well, which has informed kind of future state in terms of development, is they have an engagement tool that I think they used to do quarterly, they've cut it to 3 times a year. The comments that each individual person writes through that engagement, they're read right up at top level. The Chief People Officer, she goes through them line by line. So they're looking at what's coming through data in terms of what are our people's needs and what are their wants. Usually they say what they want, sometimes they don't say what they need. So there's a balance between us giving them what they're asking for, but also being able to take a look outside at what's coming. They're fortunate that they have some people like me who, I work in OVO, but I also keep my hand in externally, cross-industry, cross-sports, and tend to just poke them every now and again and say, we really need to look over here and start thinking about it. And I think from a development point of view for our people, it is, with the AI piece coming, some of it's about how do we prepare our people to use AI in the right ways. So Anthony talked about, when you use ChatGPT, you don't talk to it like you would talk to Google. Like we were eating here last night, I put into Google, good restaurant, Coventry, top ratings. You wouldn't say that conversationally. So we have a place as a people team where there's no demand yet. People aren't asking us for how do we use AI yet because it's not come fully. but we've had to start thinking about it early, about how we train our people to use these tools and bridge that transition gap between the old way and the new way. And then the middle bit of our development and focus in L&D is some of what you were talking about earlier, which AI won't replace. So problem-solving skills, active listening, very, very difficult to do, especially in modern times when people want to be distracted on their phones all the time. Empathy, and we've had to build some programs that do have in-person, and it's hybrid programs as well, to be honest, in some of the local hubs that help people transition in their journeys across the business. And then the last piece for us in terms of people and development is there's a lot of industry-led initiatives like green skills and big pots from the government looking to create green skills roles. So we have kind of industry demand, we have demand that we have in the business that we need to support our people with, and then we have new things that we kind of need to mix in. And it's a careful balancing act with budget and politics and understanding where we are on that journey. We have, probably, I think I did my green belt 2015, and I came out fresh out of qualifying, did my black belt with PMI 5 or 6 years ago, and I came out and I was fresh and I was excited and I was frustrated that all these senior leaders didn't get it, but we weren't in a place yet to be able to do statistical control charts. We didn't even have basic data. And I've had to learn as an individual that part of my role is about bringing other people on that journey.
Yes.
And finding the other people who I work with who are further along so we can create a bit of a wave rather than it just being one person who's pushing it all the time or dragging it.
Behind you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got a very different challenge again, because you've got a vast organisation by comparison to many. It's 183 sites, 79,000 people.
Yeah.
So, perhaps one person at a time working to find a small wave is not going to work for you. What are you thinking about how you move forward to create that change?
In terms of hybrid working, I think it didn't really exist in our organisation, but we had a lot of people who had the opportunity to do it. I've been working remotely since 2005, since I moved into a lean CI role. But it was often, you're still going into an office, but all day you're not talking to anybody in the plant. You're on telephone calls talking to somebody in China or in Mexico.
Yes.
And I did that from 2005 until COVID, pretty much. You're driving, I was working in Chapel-on-the-Frith, I live in Rotherham. So it's an hour and a quarter drive there, an hour and a quarter drive back. That's the expectation. And then COVID came along and it sort of changed it for everybody. And we had a lot of people working remotely that had no experience in the past. They sat in kitchens, they sat in bedrooms, and they're doing their sort of stuff. And as COVID sort of came to an end, and it wasn't really clear when it sort of came to an end, most people went back. We're a manufacturing business. Most people are expected to be at the site. They need to be at the site often to do their job. They've got people that are reporting to them. They need interaction. A big part of our business, manufacturing business, is the tier meeting. I think it was called huddles today. We still call it tier meeting. Maybe we're old-fashioned. But you need to be typically at the site. You need information in front of you. You need to make decisions, and stuff's getting done. But for people such as me, it changed a little bit. And there's a lot of people in my role supporting business, but not at the local sort of level, where it was then okay to work from home. It wasn't the pressure to come into the office and sit in a meeting room, and it was okay.
And then, so with that being okay now, how are you making sure that the improvements are happening?
Visiting the sites. So
you're doing a bit of both?
I do a lot of the travelling bit. So I'm able to work from home. You know, like this week I'm working from home. Last week I wasn't working from home. Next week I will, and then the following week I won't. I'll be travelling again. So our business is still a lot of travelling, but the remote working isn't, you know, I've got a sort of beautiful sit-stand desk at home, and I've got a beautiful chair. It's ever so comfortable when you sit in it. You just feel just at home, and you can just work. You've got everything around you, you know, internet and everything. But often you're sat at hotels, you're sat in a lounge somewhere, you're sat in an airport somewhere, you're sat in the back of a taxi, because we're a global organisation, and one of the disadvantages of not working at a site for me is that you used to be able to finish at, let's say 5, you're driving home, and by 6 you're at home, and then you're sort of disconnected. And now it's not like that. Now it's early morning with China, Europe during the day, and America's during the sort of late evening. And I find that's different. So it's okay to work from home, but having accepted that, it does change also your sort of lifestyle.
So you're talking about an expectation now that you're working longer hours, but people aren't recognising that?
I think it's recognised. I think it's accepted in our industry that that's par for the course.
Okay.
But I think it's come along with sort of hybrid working. And when I read in newspapers, maybe before I started in that sort of working way, you know, when I'm visiting the site, I would have thought, oh, these are other people it's happening to when you read it in the newspapers. And now, since COVID, and it's clearly expected, it feels different because I'm working physically from home rather than visiting a site. It just shifts the boundaries of what's, you know, the working times. I don't complain about it. I love the job that I do. I've been doing it for a long time. But I think it is, you know, something that's different from before.
So where we've got this different mix of people, we've got some who are returning, who don't want to return, some who are very much in and out. How are you managing with the development side of people's needs? Because presumably the audience that you're trying to develop their capabilities, they're all in different places, all in different locations.
I think you have to give people options. So we do face-to-face training, go out to the sites to do training. Sometimes people come to head office, but also we've recently invested in some software where you can, there's like avatars and you type a script and then the avatar presents. The first generation was quite wooden, and if you wanted them to do any facial expressions, there was a little button to do like raise eyebrows, shake head or nod. But the latest generation, they kind of understand if it's happy talk, you know, when it's the important, they really put the emphasis on it now. So it's coming along well. And lots of stuff like online, digital magazines that go out every month with links to different videos and content. So I think it is giving people those options.
Which is a much broader, richer range.
Yeah.
And so do you then allow people to choose which one they want?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is tracked. So the digital brochure, you can see how many people have viewed it, how many have spent time. We've got an online learning management system where all the videos can be added again. You can track who's done it. So, yeah, but it is giving people that option and the choice. So that everyone learns differently. And some people just like to, you know, have a go as well and get stuck in. So quite often we do pilots of different things as well and get people's feedback, and then share those stories, because that's really powerful in getting buy-in from other areas, that they can see other people in the same roles of them have tried it and here's what they thought.
I think in the sort of industry I work in, you know, what a team leader does and what a supervisor does and what a value stream manager does, what the maintenance people need to do is quite well defined. There's quite a long legacy. And you know, in our organisation, I think we find it quite easy to define roles and responsibilities. You can measure people to an extent against those, and you can define quite standardised training. You know, there's a lot of training that's been sort of discussed and developed, local colleges and things like that. But again, when I listen to other people in the room, you know, I think I said the same word, I feel like a dinosaur sometimes. It's manufacturing, we're making stuff, and it's quite well established, and the sort of process of developing people is quite well established. It's like quite mechanistic in that. And then when I listen to some of, you know, my colleagues here, it's like we're developing something completely new. It's a new type of business. You know, when people talk about renewables, that didn't exist maybe 10, 15 years ago, and now you're thinking about something new. So for me, it's quite interesting. How do you start to define structures and standards and roles and responsibilities and training packages and getting local colleges and universities interested to try to help you to train your people. It's just, we don't have that difficulty because it is maybe a dinosaur technology in some respects.
But presumably the question of automation, question of AI is coming your direction too.
AI at the moment, you know, ChatGPT we're not allowed to use because the feeling is that you're pushing sensitive data out of the organization. And so AI is not really well used. We typically struggle with shop floor data, catching it at the right time, making it available to the right people, and making it available in the right format so people can do something practical with it.
Yeah.
So again, when I listen to AI, I understand a little bit, you know, what I see and what I read. But practically, in terms of what we're using it for at the moment, is almost non-existent. We're right at the sort of baby steps of it.
Yeah. What I was interested, you know, I was going to say to you, Anthony, because a lot of experience I've had talking to leaders, and Saj, you were talking about during COVID and the changes that happened, automation came into its own during that period, and companies rolled out things and implemented big changes, you know, call centers being able to work from home, things that they'd never imagined they could do. And what was interesting has been the conversations with leaders post that who say, well, I saw we were able to implement automated systems really quickly and get great results from that. Why aren't we able to continue that at pace? So what do you think is different, and what do you think of the risks associated with pace versus benefits of these systems?
Well, of course, it varies industry to industry, but the big risk typically with automation, especially if you do it rapidly, is that you can automate a bad process. You can automate something and therefore it becomes accepted that that's the way it is because, you know, we can't see it, we can't see the human doing it anymore. And therefore, you know, any sub-optimization, any issues, they're now baked in until someone has the bright idea to look at what we automated. So that's always a risk. But I think, yeah, in COVID, necessity was definitely the mother of invention. And I think a lot of these solutions, you know, Zoom, not many people had really heard of things like Zoom until COVID hit us. And the things that you can now, the very solutions that are out there that you can bolt onto these applications have really helped. But I think the other risk then is the trade-off of over-reliance on these techniques and actually losing something in the bringing people together to learn. And I think there's probably a healthy place for both. And I think it varies industry to industry, but particularly in the service industry, because as you said, Saj, you know, manufacturing, you've got to be there. So there is that pull. But particularly in the service industry, there is a risk that those social connections are being diluted and that the ability to learn as a team and grow as a team is being diluted. So I think those are probably the two risks with over-automating in response to being at home, if you like.
Yes, yes. And have you found that much, I mean, you talked about no AI yet and so on, not sure about AI, but automation is well established within OVO, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And we have, there's kind of pockets of AI. We have pilots and trials going on at the moment. Anthony and I were just talking after his presentation earlier that, you know, the diffusion of innovation model where you've got your innovators and early adopters and then your laggards at the end. We definitely have a full suite of people across all of those. Some of which it's not even, they're in denial about it. They are scared and they're just like, go away. Right through to probably people like myself who don't have the technical expertise, but understand that there's power to be had if we use that technology. I say blended between the human and the machines, the machinery. But again, it's a journey. I've had to do, so we have some AI pockets relating to customer or in our customer demand teams. Because I work in the people team, I was looking at how can we use it internally to create a better people experience that means they spend less time on admin. Just simple things like booking a holiday takes 7 minutes per holiday. If we plug in and use an AI platform, it takes 20 seconds. And if you times that by all the number of people, you have a compounded improvement. And I couldn't just go with a normal business case because there was so much assumption and emotion around this new technology that was coming. The amount of pre-work, warming up groups before the official presentation, I've never done anything like it before in my life, just because I felt for me to get buy-in at the point that I needed to get buy-in, I had to do all this, speak to people individually and educate them and take them on the journey and revisit them because something came out the week before on YouTube.
Yes. I mean, I think it's come up a lot, hasn't it? It doesn't matter whether it's dealing with the people who are going through the change or working with the leadership team who you're trying to influence to go through the change. Actually, it takes time and effort and energy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In order to create that new way and acceptance of the new way.
It's worth it though.
Yes.
And also, you know, Charlie this morning mentioned 80-20. Like, not everyone in the organisation has the same impact and influence. And if you're really smart, you can use the 80-20 rule when you influence to find the people who can influence more people.
Yeah.
So if you can be smart and targeted and efficient in your influence and strategy and telling that story and bringing those people on the journey. But it's worth the effort if you get it at the right time with the right people.
Those of you that were in the session with Warren and Ian talked a lot about, they were talking about not influencing from a logical perspective. Because, you know, the logic in my brain said, Marvin earlier talked about people having better and more meaningful work. So if I can reduce my 7-minute holiday request to 20 seconds, I could be doing better and more meaningful work somewhere else. That just seems logical to me.
Yeah, that in the conversation that we had earlier, this came up that, again, it's almost a risk or a challenge that organisations can kind of leap straight to asking big, ambitious, understandably ambitious questions like, oh, so can this AI, you know, talk to my customers for me? You know, how do I start rigging some machine up that's going to solve this problem? Like, it could be holiday bookings or something more significant. But as you kind of hinted at, you miss a trick there of, but you're an organisation of, I don't know, let's say for argument's sake, 1,000 people, just pluck a number out of thin air. How much benefit could there be gotten by each of those individuals on a daily basis, making these little gains on their own, simply by opening their mind up? And then that opens up another interesting question, which is, okay, so, well, what's preventing them right now? You know, a few people today have approached me after the presentation and said, oh, it's really interesting. I don't really touch it, though. It's sort of over there, and it's a bit scary, and I'm not sure where to start. And that could be the place to start, you know, looking at your 1,000 employees and saying, actually, we could get them closer to this, you know, the work feeling better, autonomy, mastery, purpose. And we can get them there actually by starting with the question, well, what is our culture like? What is our people's predisposition to even entertain engaging with these things? Not the first question being, so what machine can we rig, you know, to do the job for us?
Yes.
I've got maybe an opposite view.
Okay.
Maybe, but
Oh, I love a challenge. Go for it.
maybe not AI, but in terms of automation, we've got businesses. I'll go back to manufacturing again because that's my sort of life basically. And you can collect data from machines automatically, and it goes into a computer, and somebody can access it later. But often, you know, I push for, and a lot of my colleagues push for, and advocate where operators collect data and they put it onto a board. So it's the opposite of automation. You know that there's easy solutions for it.
Yeah.
And then, in a sense, the point that I'm making is that you have to sometimes be careful what you wish for. If the data disappears and I don't take any responsibility for putting that data onto a board and saying, oh, it's not okay, I'm not even controlling my own behavior because it's now out of sight and out of mind. And I've seen examples of that in our business. So people say, oh, look at this wonderful computer we've got here in the corner, and look at all this information I can... And then the question is, well, who's looking at it and what are they doing with it? And what about the people out there? What information do they have now, what they can do something with? So, and I know you're not making that point.
No, I agree with you. We shouldn't be using automation to take away learning opportunities from people.
That's self-control. I think, you know, we talked about 5S, and you made the point very nicely. And if something's on the floor, it's not the point that it's on the floor. Where did it come from? How did it get there? And it's often the same with data. If I take responsibility because this belongs to me, this data belongs to me, I'm going to post it here. And if it's not okay, it's my responsibility to tell my boss to say, hey, I need help because it's not okay. Somebody else is going to challenge me. And if that data is displayed in the right place, in the manufacturing environment, in the offices, people will feel compelled, one, to fill it in properly. The other is that they'll feel compelled to try to achieve the targets that they've been given. We talked about targets, KPIs and target setting. I know you weren't making that point, but I think in a sense it's this like, you have to be careful what you wish for sometimes with automation, and you have to understand the social context and how management is affecting control of that environment before you make a change. Otherwise, you can get unintended consequences as well and waste your money at the same time to boot.
And I think in that context, as you say, it isn't instead of learning.
Yes. No, the question isn't how can I avoid needing to learn this and just have the AI do it for me, or the automation. Let's not just talk about AI, automation in general. The question is how can I enhance and expand what's possible with this learning journey? So I still want the learnings, but I want to be able to do more. What help can be provided from technology to do that? And if you're asking that question, I think you're in a better place.
Fab, thank you. So we've got another 5 minutes. I just wanted to open it to the floor, really. Got these lovely people who volunteered to come up and bear themselves on the stage, emotionally, if not literally. So does anyone have any questions? Do we have any roving mics that we can use? Yes, lady over here.
Definitely need powered roller skates next time.
Yes. If you could just tell me your name and where you're from as well.
Okay, so I'm Patricia, I'm from DEFRA. So my question is to the lady in the lovely turquoise top. I'm really sorry, I can't remember your name.
Amber.
Amber, you mentioned really eloquently about how you went almost to the Gemba to implement the iPads and what have you. You did mention that you pushed to have that kind of approach. My question is, it's often very much missed in organisations to ask the question why, because it's usually seen as like being provocative or being annoying or awkward or negative. So I picked up on that because I totally love the why. It is what I have to have in my everyday. So my question is, it's a difficult position to be because you have to feel quite psychologically safe to push back and say, actually, I'm not going to do it this way. I know that you want pace and I know that you want this, etc. But this is why I'm going to be doing it this way. Can you explain a little bit more about sort of like how you dealt with those barriers to overcome why you needed to position that why?
Yeah, so actually I did focus on the why. So I did one site and I put a few technicians through, not a 6 hour, it was a 2 hour. We did it just to see what the effect was. And as we suspected, it wasn't going to work. So Munich asked me to share best practice with the other countries on an all-country call. And when I was thinking about how to present it, I was thinking about what are the challenges that we face every day. And I said, this is not necessarily best practice and it won't work for every country because how every country works is different. There's different rules, different legislation. I said, but for us, for example, our vehicles have to be inspected every 6 weeks. So operationally, if you take 10 technicians out, one branch might actually have to close. How are we going to service our customers, keep their vehicles on the road and maintain that 6 weekly inspection if we're shut? So that's one thing. And I just focused on the why and sort of said these were all the challenges that we face, and therefore the reason that I'm doing this and following this approach is in response to those challenges. I did also find a little article on Harvard Business Review that I put into my presentation, which I think always helps when it talks leadership, which was by a company called Infosys that I've worked with previously on another project. And they talked about micro changes, which basically for me is just common sense. So do something small, check, how's it going? Do the next little bit, do the next little bit. Sometimes transformation can be overwhelming for people. I mean, this was a huge change to how people had worked for years and years and years. So actually doing a little tiny bit at a time, you bring them with it, you check in, what's the feedback, do we need to make any changes? And then you move on to the next bit. So yeah, we said, what were our challenges? This is why we're going to do this way, because it's in response to those challenges that we're facing. Okay, hope that helps.
Thank you, Amber. Was there another question? Jackie? Hang on, I think Mark's come with the mic to you.
Thank you. So Jackie, I'm from PMI, and thank you to everyone. It's been a really interesting discussion. I'm hoping my question won't crash it. So, which am I going to go for? So, Suzanne, you started off early on with some really terrifying statistic about 7 million people who won't have the core skills by 2030, which, just thinking about how the flow of development of people works, that means we've got people who are stuck in the system now who don't have those skills, and we've got people coming through education who we don't think are acquiring those skills. So the question I had was, if you could just declare one thing in each of your businesses, and Anthony, you can do this PMI if you wish. If you could declare one thing in each of your businesses that you think would make a big difference to that number tomorrow, what would it cost? No objective. Senior leadership will be right behind you. What would it be?
Okay. I'll give you some thinking time at this end. Do you want to have a go, Alison?
Straight in.
Could you repeat the question? Just
Excellent. If you wanted to have a positive impact on this idea that there's millions and millions of people who are not going to have the core skills of communication, collaboration, problem solving, planning, prioritizing in the future, and if you had a budget and a mandate to fix it now, what would be the one thing you'd do in your organisation?
Well, it's an interesting one because at PMI, obviously, it's largely a learning organisation that really we're seeking to equip people with problem-solving skills and a lot of that. So I'm not sure if you're asking me, do I have a magic genie and I can do whatever I like with the organisation, money no object? I guess it would be to try and get into more the basic education system, because at the moment most consultancies like PMI, we work with those who are already out in organisations where you could almost argue it's after the fact. So organisations, not just PMI, but like PMI, I guess if you could wave a magic wand, you'd let them into parts of the actual traditional education system. What would a world look like where people who exited school knew how to problem solve and understood the concept of variation in their processes? Possibly different than this one.
I think that's a really good point, yeah. It is a thing that is missed in schools. You've got your maths, your English, your science, but not necessarily all of the day-to-day skills in terms of how you would work, creatively problem solve, etc. Also in business, it would be great if like 10% of everyone's job could be doing some sort of continuous improvement, looking at how things are done, asking the why all the time and looking to improve. Recently had a pilot group go through our continuous improvement event training with Dennis, and it was amazing because it was like how my brain works was out in a room with my colleagues for 2 days, and the way how positively they responded to the way that Dennis trained them and how they've taken that back into the business is brilliant. But doing the continuous improvement does bring all of that different thought process in. As you said, it's sort of our bread and butter and what we do. So I think everybody's role should have an element of that in it.
I couldn't agree more. Sorry, we're getting towards the end, so just...
I'll say it quick then. I have a different opinion. I'm not sure it's problem solving. I think in our organisation, we have tons of very good problem solving people. They're solving problems all the time. I think if I had the magic wand, I think that's what you were offering, a magic wand. And I would split between leadership and management. We've got a lot of leaders, they come and go, and that's fine. But just management, you know, basic management to avoid the problems, avoid fixing problems that we fixed before and we know how to fix, but we fix them again and again. And just management that do daily management, they practice it, they preach it, and they sort of, by example, lead in that way and not just try to act as leaders. In my mind, leadership and management are quite distinct, but you want them often in the same individual. And I would want management with the magic wand or the magic wish that you're offering.
Great, thank you. And Jenny?
I think CI is a good one to pick because there's quite a lot in there and it covers a lot of like voice of the customer, measures, current state, storytelling, problem solving. So I'm going to go with the broad brush stroke of CI.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your questions. Most importantly, thank you, guys.
Thank
Coming
you.
up and
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you, guys. That's fantastic. And so we're here. It doesn't seem 2 minutes ago, but I can tell you we've had 705 minutes of content delivered since I started this morning, of which, by my estimation, we've had 1.5 minutes out of the agenda. So thank you very much for your cooperation on that timekeeping. It is better than we possibly could have hoped for. So in summary, what a day. We've covered neurodiversity, leadership, agile, SPC, patient care, cultural change, gamification, Deming's principles, KPIs, AI. We've heard about the psychology of high performance, improvement in renewables. We've had the wisdom and insights of a former Toyota executive, and we've just explored the future of work. Oh, and with some magic wands, hallucinations, and genies thrown in on the side. Thank you, folks. Nothing like just in time. So, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank all of our presenters from today. If we could give our presenters a big round of applause, that'd be fantastic. Guys, you've done an amazing job. I'd also like to thank the PMI and Capella logistics team who have absolutely blown it away, folks, with the 1.5 minutes and the 705. Fantastic. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you, our audience. Thank you for your participation, your contributions throughout the day, and your questions to keep us on our toes. To let you know, a new tab has been added to the app. That's live now with VOC in there. It's got the voice of the customer. It's got a link to Charlie Unwin's book in there, and it's got some links to some PMI Live episodes that have been referenced. We'll also send you an email tomorrow as well, so don't stress about it today. We'll send you an email tomorrow to remind you of that. I started the day this morning saying your feedback is vital. It really is. How else can we improve other than hearing firsthand from you guys? So please give us as much detail and as much elaboration as you possibly can to help us understand how today has been. It's our first time that we've done anything like this. We've got a feeling how it's gone, but we really do need specifics from you guys, so that's much appreciated in advance. In terms of the recordings from today's sessions, we'll be releasing them over the coming days, weeks and months. We'll edit them up. Every session has been recorded today. So the best way to make sure you get those is somewhere on... There it is to follow us on LinkedIn. So if you don't follow us already, you can search Process Management International or scan that QR code. That will ensure you get the latest updates when those are released. We're going to go through an editing process, so they won't all be released in one go. Plus, we are a very British phrase coming, a gnat's whisker off having 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. So help us get there today. It's one of Susie's annual objectives, actually. So yes, please do help us on that. You're welcome. So back to where we started, the future of improvement. I think the future of improvement is looking bright. I hope you agree. Hopefully armed with some of the insights and knowledge that we've from today, your work as an improvement practitioner will be enhanced a little. After all, effective continuous improvement is all about the marginal gains. And if you're ever in any doubt about your abilities to make change, I love this quote. Think about this quote from the attributed to the Dalai Lama. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. So finally, thanks again for being with us, and we very much look forward to welcoming you to Goals to Results 25. Thanks, folks.